Good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the Fairhaven Planning Board. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. At the time of the board reorganization in January of this year, the board adopted its regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the schedule was sent to and published in the Asbury Park Press on January 31st, 2025, and the Two River Times on January 23rd, 2025. That notice was also posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, has remained continuously posted there as required by the statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the borough clerk. A copy of the notice has also been sent to members of the public as have requested such information in accordance with the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bush. Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Newell.
Here.
Mr. Vanilla.
Here.
Ms. Rawl. Mr. Nika. Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mrs. Antonin. Here. Mr. Grandinetti.
Here. You don't join me in a salute of flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I am going to jump directly to the administrative items, so we can clear those off. First off, has everyone been able to review the minutes from the October 21st meeting? Yes. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Can I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Newell.
Yes.
Mr. Vanilla.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Antonin. Yes. Mr. Grandinetti.
Yes.
Great, right. Next administrative item is the review and discussion of the 2025-19 amendments to stormwater management. I think I wanted to defer to Rich here to kick us off on the subject.
Yes, good evening. In your packets, you should have the ordinance, which is 2025-19. As the chair had mentioned, we are looking to amend this ordinance. The governing body introduced the ordinance and then reintroduced it at our last meeting. We had some comments that came back from Monmouth County. The basis of the ordinance is to tailor it more towards Fairhaven. If you recall, we did an adoption about a year ago, and we adopted the standard for DEP. So we are in compliance as it currently stands. However, most of what was in that ordinance is what's considered, we call major development. And if you read the definition of major development, most of the projects within Fairhaven, whether it's something that comes before this board, the zoning board, or even administratively through the land use office, doesn't necessarily get to that definition of major development. Therefore, stormwater was not a requirement of that, whether it be an applicant, a builder, a homeowner, whatever, somebody managing a project. So what we did internally is, and working with the governing body, is look at other ways that we can get something implemented. So at the end of the day, what we're striving for is, if you're doing a project, we just want something where you're gonna manage your stormwater. Essentially what it's doing is you soak up the rain, whatever's created based on what you're building, whether you're doing a small addition, whether you're adding an outdoor kitchen, whether you're putting a detached garage, whether you put a swimming pool in, even new construction. Now, up until now, we've basically worked with a lot of the applicants for, if you're building a new house, you gotta give us something. And that something typically is a dry well. Tie in your downspouts, have your engineer design something, we go out and inspect it, and then it complies. Same thing with a swimming pool. If you're gonna add a swimming pool, provide a grading plan. We want to make sure that we're not running runoff to any neighbors or causing any any adverse effects. The next step we wanted to look at is what we define as minor development. So I talked about the definition major development. There is a definition of minor development. We have implemented it into this ordinance. These are specifics that we pulled from the Watershed Institute, which is a coalition that works through the DEP regs, and they anticipate too that we're going to be having to do this anyway at some point in time. It's just for minor development. So they have some samples and some examples that we were able to look at. We also looked at other municipalities of our type and character and looked at what they did. So a lot of it has to do with what type of project you're doing. I mentioned new construction. We've been working with folks on that. More major renovations, same. As you can see, even the times people bring applications before this board, we ask them, you gotta do something. Swimming pools, same thing. What this does, it takes it to the next step. So we added a piece for when you're adding a certain square footage of impervious coverage. The reason we made it square footage is we want to make it simple. What we try to do is if somebody calls Borough Hall and says, oh, I'm looking to do this project, do I need stormwater management? You can't expect them to say, well, what's your current lot coverage percentage and what's it gonna be? They may not, most likely they don't know that. So we said, all right, let's take a look at the projects that have been done in the last 5 or 10 years with Fairhaven administratively. That could be adding onto your driveway, that could be putting a detached garage and extending driveway, that could be doing a patio. Things like that where you get additional sheet flow and runoff. And obviously on some of these smaller lots, it could be a potential issue, so. What we came up with was 400 square feet. So 400 square feet of new impervious. So if you're gonna redo your driveway and you're gonna add so many square feet, and maybe you're gonna redo a walkway and add so many square feet, and maybe do a back covered, porch or something. If that all totals 400 square feet or more impervious than what you had, then you need to provide some type of stormwater management. And when I say stormwater management, I mean BMP. I don't know if you're familiar with best management practice. That could be a small rain garden. That could be a vegetated buffer strip. There's in the ordinance, there's some examples. We also provide the information where you can find information on the different types of BMPs. And the other thing too to add is these are all projects and ideas that we've worked through the Green Team and the Environmental Commission as well. So what we're saying is, it doesn't have to be some major engineered type structure. It could be a stone trench with some pipe just to allow the water to soak in back into the ground rather than out into the street. It could be a rain garden, which in most cases, landscaping is proposed anyway when you're doing some backyard activity or improvement, and you can incorporate a small rain garden or such. The one thing too is, just to give you a perspective, for every inch of rain, if we had rain tonight and we got an inch of rain, for every 1,000 square feet, that's 600 gallons. So that's 600, if you have a driveway, that's 1,000 square feet, we got an inch of rain tonight, that's 600 gallons of water that's flowing into the streets of Fairhaven, which then in turn ends up in our storm drain infrastructure system. So our thought is, maybe we can work towards having folks manage some of this on their property. And that's done through the various definitions that we put in here. And the main definition is obviously minor development. And Minor development means any development that results in an increase in or replacement of impervious surface of 400 square feet or more.
That's on page like 3 or 4, right? Yeah.
That's on page in the definition.
And that's an increase of
Increase.
or replacement of, so. So what if you're doing construction on a home that currently has, or a lot that currently has, say, 2,000 square feet of impervious? You're ripping it all out and redoing it, and you're coming up with 2,000 square feet of impervious.
You can move it
You're-
around on your
You're
lot.
not required to do stormwater management.
But technically, if you're doing 2,000 square feet of something, it's probably a larger scale project, depending on. Well,
Single family house.
could be, but I guess if you're. On some of the larger lots, yes, if you're taking 2,000 square feet out and you're moving it around.
Yeah,
It's a pre-existing condition,
so you're not gonna trigger the need,
you're not gonna trigger the
despite
need.
it being new construction.
If it's new construction for if you're building, so there's certain, and I didn't bring the application. We created an application
Yeah,
for everybody. One of the items is the increase in impervious of 400 square feet. But if you're doing a new house, it's required.
regardless of whether you
Regardless.
are increasing or decreasing the impervious or runoff on the site.
Because it's a major project, so that's standard.
No, it would be a minor
No,
project.
it's not.
Major project will be defined
Building a
by,
new house, is it-
yeah.
It's
No,
not,
it-
it's not a major development as
No, major
per
development will be an acre or more. and
But it's
starting with
required.
an acre.
per the ordinance.
If you're not bringing in a minor development, which is in excess of
Right,
400.
And Andrew brings up a good point, it does say an increase or replacement.
right, which is contradictory. So that implies if you're replacing 400 feet,
You have to do it.
then you have to do it. So,
I could tell you the intent was additional,
right.
so we'll have to
well,
go back to
yeah, we ought
the,
to-
borough attorney.
Yeah, maybe.
Just
see if they
to
want
verify
come
that.
Yeah, so if there are de minimis changes.
Yeah.
We can continue
Right.
with Monday's meeting and adopt, assuming it passes. If they're not de minimis, then it'll probably be next year.
Yeah.
This is the latest word that I've heard from
Yeah.
Nelson.
Well, you have a definition of replacement, which says means the removal and substitution.
Yeah.
So it's removal and substitution of a substantial portion of the framing and roofing of an existing building or structure, or the removal and substitution of a substantial portion of the existing pavement or other impervious material. So I don't know that it still would address the concern.
Yeah, I read that. as
Well,
if
that
you
would-
rip up a sidewalk and put a new sidewalk in.
You're obligated to do stormwater management per the code, and my concern with that. Regardless of intent is. If a professional is designing that change, they're gonna read that and tell the homeowner,
Mhm.
you now have to do the stormwater management, which I think is probably not. You know, and I think, I get,
We'll go back, because I could tell you the application that I prepared, which is in draft format, which was circulated through our subcommittee and talked about at the governing body level. The following proposed work is what the intent is, a new dwelling,
mhm,
pretty simple. A new dwelling on an existing foundation, so if you take a house down to an existing foundation, you build a new house, you gotta do stormwater management.
and. Sorry, go
I say,
ahead.
can I take a straw poll? What's the sense, do we want placement to, so now that I understand it, or we have got this distinction. Are we inclined to want replacement to trigger, or the intent of just increase?
If I could, just on a point of order. The board wouldn't draft it. What the board would do would be to highlight
Right,
the issue. For America, because they may want that, they may, the exact reading that Mr. Anderson gave,
They may want-
exactly, that's what we want to do.
right.
That's what I'm
But-
trying to say, is
but-
what's the preference?
I'm sorry, that the bottom line of this is, and maybe we should have started there, and I apologize for just letting go. We're going to be reviewing this ordinance in our function as the planning board.
Yes,
we're gonna highlight those things that are either of concern, or we feel that something is simple to be addressed by mayor and council. If it is not substantive, then you're probably not going to have, a rewriting, or excuse me, a rereading or modification. If, however, we're highlighting, like, the use of replacement in minor development, and you couple it with what the definition of replacement is, may result in an increase of cost of development for minor developments. If that is the intent of mayor and council, fine, we don't have anything else to say.
Right.
If that isn't the intent, then maybe there needs some additional refinement. And that's how you would normally address it. I mean, as simple as that, or something as simple as I was speaking before David, in you've got a definition of public roadway and public transportation entity. Definitions look great, except they precede pollution. I pick nets for a living, that's what you hire an attorney to do. That should go after pollution, because the way I do my alphabet, you those.
Oh, so you're alphabet.
Something along those lines, just soup to nuts. Just
Yeah.
highlight where we see some concerns, and this is why we have the discussion for, is to say, look, this is our intent. Okay, having that intent, these are the concerns when we read it, we just highlight that, this is our review. We don't publish the ordinance, we don't vote on approval.
I'm not asking.
I'm
for
sorry,
that.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I'm not asking for that, I'm glad you're clarifying. When it comes up for debate, this will come up, I imagine. And the question will be, what does the planning board think about this particular question? And do we have a sense, is that something that we think is appropriate for a planning board for development? Do we want replacement to trigger or not?
My opinion is no, it's not appropriate. I mean, it's clearly there to force compliance. So
My
it's
opinion is no.
Similar to new construction.
The intent is, and based on the application that we created. Impervious surface over 400 square feet, I put an asterisk. And the asterisk is net increase of impervious surface. Measured on a cumulative basis, so net.
I don't want to presume that, when it comes on Monday, like, I want to be able to say.
Yeah.
The general sense, whether it's a straw poll or just comments or whatever, or you want to email them later.
Right.
So that it's accurate, reflecting what, you guys spend a lot more time on this than the governing body does.
Well, I mean, look, I think it would just be a question for the governing body, right? Is it an attempt to force compliance the same way that a new right? So like, if I'm building a new house and I'm replacing like kind a house that was there, I'm making it new, I'm not changing the impervious coverage. I'm now obligated to increase in the stormwater management, right? So it's the town's ability to force compliance when it was previously grandfathered out, right? We're in. So the question really is that what the intent of that is? To Doug's point, is the intent there that it's nuanced so that if somebody replaces it, they're then forced to do it. If that's not the case, it should be cleaned up. If
That's
it is
not
the
the
case, I personally.
If it is the case, how does the board feel about that?
I have an issue.
Yeah, yeah. And so I haven't been involved in the detailed negotiations like you have with Drew, so if it wasn't the intent.
It's not the intent, and the. Some of the other communities have actually adopted 250 square
Yeah.
feet, and
I
I
know.
kind of pushed back on that,
Yeah.
saying that's really, I said, you gotta find a balance in that.
If I may, it's a march, 20 years ago, you took all the water off the site, right? You took all the water off the site, we
Right.
found out that we weren't recharging, and in places like Fairhaven, where you have pressure of salt water in a sense, well, nature pours it back into. I take that water out, I divert it, I'm slowly having more saltwater incursion, which causes other problems. To the extent that you can put more back, that's good. To the extent that it makes it. It places the burden on the homeowner to add that into an additional cost, that's a genuine concern to have
Yeah.
to, for the planning board to address.
But also, how about looking at things like, and maybe it's not even for this, but. I was really frustrated building my house when I was putting a pea gravel driveway in, and that's classified as. Impervious surface, when the truth is, that's actually a dry well if I build it correctly, right? So the town was assuming that I'm gonna put an RCA base, which is not,
Right,
you can infiltrate, but the reality is I would have put. 3/4 inch clean for 6 to 12 inches. And essentially it built us, 800 square foot dry well, and I was told that that counts against my coverage when I'm going, guys, what are you talking about? I'm actually recharging here and I'm doing it appropriately, I'm doing it in a huge area. And
So
so like,
the-
what about,
so-
where's things like that? fit
So
in?
the mayor and council, as you're aware, they created a subcommittee for land use.
Mhm.
We've had a couple meetings.
Yeah.
And they do run in conjunction with the downtown committee that we also have. And one of the topics that we're discussing is the current standards for some of this, and I brought up the term impervious coverage. The percentages are such where maybe they need to be looked at for certain zones.
Yeah.
And then even from a definition standpoint, to your point, we're counting certain things that other towns don't count. Like gravel.
And some do, but it's just a perfect opportunity to say, hey, as one mitigating factor.
A
how
gravel
about
driveway would be a
instead of an
benefit.
asphalt driveway, when it's a benefit, when, you know what I mean, like, there's little things like that can help.
Do you have a standard like that for now, say, so many inches of this material, so many inches of that material, so that it's someone like a homeowner saying, look, I'm all for recharging. But you don't have a standard for that, you're just saying because it looks like this, it looks like gravel, it looks like something that over time and use, it will compact. But if it's designed properly, it shouldn't.
That's gonna be the next step
Okay.
off of the ordinance where we could provide examples for the homeowners and because we're really looking just to have low impact type stuff.
Mhm.
And if you look at some of the examples, a grass swale counts.
Yeah,
Simply putting, if you're gonna build a patio, do a little grass swale depression and that'll pick up the water instead of running it into the neighbor's yard or out into the street. Some of these other items, like a vegetative filter strip, if you're gonna do a landscape area in the backyard, there's a way to design it in such a way to, maybe pick plants and material that would soak up some of that water. Rather than have it just, diverted around the back of your house and onto your driveway. So. That's kind of the next step, and we do have some good examples. We don't have anything by ordinance, but when people call and we talk to these people every day. An engineer will call and email and say, hey, Rich, what are you really looking for? Especially with the dry wells, we're not looking for. Some $10,000 concrete structure to be dropped in the ground with a crane. It's like. Get your landscaper to put some perforated pipe and some 3/4 clean stone and. Dig a test pit to see if it's, and then we're good. And
I
that's
gotta
kind
tell
of,
you, they're big right now, and they are 10 grand, I'm doing one. And I was
if
pretty
it's a
surprised.
manufactured treatment.
The problem is you can't get the right infiltration rates with the
Right.
stone, given the regulations. I was actually surprised at how much I have to do right now in this town. For a new build.
Well, it's based on your soil, it's based on your water table. And, your perk
Water
rate,
tables, super deep,
super deep,
soil is great,
and they couldn't get the perk rate.
not without having a huge, literally like 20 by 50. And it was crazy, so I did a structure.
Hmm.
But, so that's where my concern is that I get the need for stormwater management, but I'm also very cognizant of the burden on the homeowner. So I think, and I understand why, why it's necessary when it hasn't been there. My struggle is just, what is the right?
What is the balance?
Right, and
Yeah.
it seems to me that we're probably out of balance. Just from a burden on the homeowner,
Who are you working with from the EC on this? Is this with Jesse and Kelly?
Yes, yeah,
And
Yeah.
Jesse's way, like Jesse, this is kind of her.
yeah, she does
For-
more like compliance
Sure.
and all that, so we've had a couple meetings with them and the administrator.
Okay, yeah, I don't disagree with, it feels as a homeowner in this town, like we continue to, it's added to our plate, the things that we have to manage that might tend to be seen as a maybe a municipality issue, so there are some things that kind of trouble me with that as well.
So as a planning board, are we supposed, I mean, we just had, 15-20 minute conversation about this.
Well, it sounds like the general direction is overall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my job is to put this together because I'm gonna write something. You know, board understands and appreciates the need to have an ordinance which is tailor-made for Fairhaven, because we don't have large development. So it's a good to address minor development. The concern is, once we address those things, minor development, will it make it cost prohibitive? Use the example of the replacement and say, the way that can be read is that that's going to add an additional cost. What I hear Rich saying is that really isn't the intent. And what we say, perhaps some refinement is needed there. If there are additional concerns while we're on this, we can raise those too. That will be in a subsection, which is, okay, it wasn't in your ordinance, but we like, what we think while we're dealing with it, things in the future to address.
I think encouraging the pervious and impervious stuff in the subcommittees, so.
Yeah.
Nudging that
Mhm.
would be good.
But standards for
Somebody's
development,
doing it
those types of services.
Well, and if you're putting in a driveway, right, the cost isn't that different, and you can choose the material, and, and I was saying this, and Nick. Nick is like, I just disagree with you, and I was like, Nick, I'm not using RCA, I'm gonna do 12 inches of
Right.
3/4 clean, it perks.
Right.
And, so, that's an easy opportunity where a homeowner has to do that. And so maybe it's not that much more burdensome. Maybe somebody doesn't want the pre-gravel look and they don't want to do it, right? I got it. But like there are other little things but like the swales, little rain gardens are beautiful and easy, and you can work it into a small spot and you can grade to it. And like those are easy things. My concern, and maybe I'm sensitive to it because I'm building a house now and I know what it's costing me to do the stormwater management on a single lot. It's quite expensive. So, and I didn't have an easy solution to make it less costly for me. So, that's a house that I'm building for profit, so fine, I work it into my numbers, it's fine, right? But as a homeowner who may not have that luxury, I think we need to be mindful of what the solutions for that are.
So I haven't shot for a drywall in a while. How much are you comfortable, how much are they?
This is gonna be about 10 grand, what I'm doing on this side.
What is that, a 20 by 50 underground?
No,
To cover what type of, how
It's
much surface.
small. We are doing.
And I'll stop you there just for a second, let her think of that, because generally what happens, because we do this, I would say, almost, it's in the forefront of the zoning board of adjustments mind. And where we will talk to the applicant to say, you're gonna add you're gonna add an addition. We would like, the roof of just this area, because you're also creating new impervious surface. We would like that captured in a dry well. We don't set parameters because there isn't an ordinance, quite frankly, to do that, but say, what we would like you to do is work with our engineer.
Yeah.
To find, number one, is there a location where this is best to be placed? That's convenient to this location. I mean, yeah, we've got something.
Yeah.
400 yards away, but to do that, and then it gets worked out with the engineer, similar to what I'm assuming.
Well, here's the
you're
thing
saying.
too. In the document towards the end, it talks about different BMPs. And one of the asterisks that's added is the use of a dry well
Last resort.
is last resort.
Yeah.
So only if, if a rain garden wouldn't work or.
Well, why last resort? And what happens if it's just easier for me to have my landscaper
So,
dig a hole, put a bunch of
foundation.
stone in, and
Yeah.
do whatever, do it, I have to do a rain garden.
I assume it's the most expensive, is the drywall?
No, I mean, it's a drywall, we have to buy some big things, but it's expensive.
Like what Doug was just talking about is easy, you run the
Yeah.
leader into.
It's
stone.
stones, yeah.
It's only gonna capture
But when you're-
X amount, but if you
Well,
talk
but
about
when
something
you're-
large.
Well, when you're building a new home,
Yeah.
you now have to tie in every leader, you have to run several hundred feet of perforated. Material, perforated PVC pipe to get to a dry well.
Right.
And, so now you're tying everything in, so you just created, 1,000 feet of piping that you wouldn't have otherwise needed, right? So.
1,000 feet of piping plus, depending on your topography.
So plus the grading, plus all the other things, plus, you know, if the soil isn't sufficient for a stone, now you need the structure down there and, you know, so it, you know, all of these things just add up. So in the instance of an addition or taking a couple dry well, you know, taking a couple liters and just dropping them down in, running them 5 feet to get it away from the foundation and then putting it in a pit, super easy.
Particularly if you
I
got.
can do it with a shovel and stone myself.
But not super easy for this, cause you can only use it if you don't do these 6 other things.
Because we're trying
Yeah.
to, not we, the intent is to try to promote green infrastructure
Yeah.
through these other BMPs. So
We're saying trying to create more green.
Green infrastructure.
not create more green infrastructure, so if you're doing a patio, you can use a pervious paver. And have a proper stone bed, and that will allow the water to
Yep.
perk into it. So there's products out there,
Yep.
there's technology out there, there's techniques out there to do it.
So just to kind of recenter us, at the planning board, we're not gonna solve this tonight, right? So I think we
No,
should
it's all
probably figure out, what the message is to the governing body, right?
Well,
It sounded like, I thought you summarized it.
I got, before we get there, I got a question for Rich, so in regards to site development, plan approvals and all that. So that's anything, an increase of 400, you're gonna have to do a site development plan?
Anything, increases 400 square feet of impervious coverage. You have to submit a grading plan and show a BMP.
So you gotta do this topographic base map, site plans, soil borings.
Which
If
you
you're
have
doing
to, you have,
400
but you have, but think about the process, when you submit, you have to go through zoning.
Right.
You need a current survey. So. You have to show your professional, your architect or engineer is gonna show whatever they're doing on that survey anyway. If it's a structure, if it's an addition, if it's a garage, that you need an architect.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of that's already being done, it's just a matter of doing the next step.
Yeah, but you could put a 400 square foot addition on and not need a variance or have to come in front of anybody, because you're within all your setbacks and all your stuff.
But that true.
But then we'd have to go do a site plan. Soil borings and
Yeah.
topography and everything else. That seems like a burden on the owner for 400 square feet.
Yeah.
Your average swimming pool plus your apron and a cabana area.
In
What do you
excess,
think you're gonna get?
Oh, yeah, it's 8,000.
Right,
yeah,
right,
1,000
yeah.
to 1,200.
I mean, 400 square feet is a little bit bigger than a spot for a 1 car garage, right? I mean, a 3 car garage is like 1,000 square feet, somewhere around there, so.
So they're gonna be doing all of those things for something like that.
a 2-car garage is usually like 22 by 22, so.
Yeah,
440.
440.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, again, my concern
And-
is just the burden on the.
but the-
on the
but-
owners.
But from our standpoint is, you're doing a detached garage, where's it gonna go? It's gonna typically go in the back corner. Who's it gonna impact? 2 or 3 neighbors that are in
And the
that.
topography.
Yeah, depending on which
So-
way.
Something offsite.
So if there's a way to capture some of that runoff off that roof and dump it into a rain garden, you know, a couple feet off that garage, there's a benefit there.
I don't disagree, but I think the guy who's putting that little shed in the back or whatever you got going on has to do a bunch of site plans for it. It's being sold as he's gonna just put a little rain garden in, but in all reality, he's gotta go through all this process. I agree with what you're saying, there's nothing wrong with putting it there, making the stuff go into a dry well or some kind of vegetation area. But there's a lot of hoops to get through that.
Or would this be something that, depending on the surface, well, depending on particular project, because now I'm thinking of the process. Could there be something that would be substituted where you'd be satisfied that a waiver would be required, would be satisfied, probably not with stormwater.
The waivers at basically the discretion.
You know,
Yeah. The one thing too to remember is,
I'm thinking of cost,
most folks are already doing this.
yeah,
When they come to us and they wanna stick a 2-car garage in the back corner, we said, you gotta give us something. And they do, they provide something to take, even if it's to take half the water off the garage.
What about a new patio, something smaller than a garage, no vertical?
Well, what we're seeing too, coming in right now, is you're getting the swimming pool with the patio,
So I'm saying that,
with
that's
the
why. I
roof
asked the question.
structure, or,
That's gonna increase the cost of that.
you know, these rear structures that are adding 1,000 square feet of roof and the water's just coming and those are things we're dealing with.
So the solution isn't the expense, it's the, getting there, process of getting there, the testing and so on.
Well, no,
It's all-
part of the expense, yeah.
It just, you know, the issue is you regulate on top of regulate, on top of regulate is like. It may seem insignificant here, but we forgot about the 10 other regulations that came ahead of it, that, you know, so it just. It's super expensive to do anything, right? The second you wanna touch. Anything on your property is crazy expensive, so it's just being mindful of, you know, and we're in a, you know, an affluent community, but there is still plenty of financial diversity here, and some of these people may, it may be a burden for them to do that, and I personally don't love the thought of somebody wanting to be able to do something, you know, and is financially unable to do it because of regulations that, you know, they've been living in a certain condition, a certain way for 50 years, and it's been okay. I get that it builds up over time, and I understand that. I just think there needs to be thought given to
The overall process.
the overall process and cost of that
It's
process.
easy to look at this in a vacuum and say this one piece of the puzzle is important, which I don't disagree, but when you're putting it on top of. The zoning board, the potential planning board, all of the fees and the lawyers and the things that go into it, it dissuades. Any type of movement to your property, if you're a business owner, you don't have the deep pockets to be able to do these things, like, I just think we need to look at this more.
So
As a whole comprehensive situation.
I think the replacement, I agree. The replacement stuff seems de minimis to me.
Yeah.
The pervious and impervious could be handled by the subcommittee. This feels not de minimis.
Right.
This concept, so, Doug, you'll incorporate it. There sounds like there's consensus on the concept. To be mindful of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, there's a place to clarify. Minor development or. Building a new house, yeah, maybe you gotta go through all this, cause you're submitting plans and site plans and stuff anyway, 'cause you're building a new house. You have an architect, you're doing all this stuff anyway to begin with.
Correct.
But if you're whacking in a patio or a shed or some sort of outdoor barbecue area.
And you have
To have to do site plans and soil borings and all that stuff seems a little
We need
crazy.
to segment it, right? Like new construction, existing build, like, what
Paths,
is the, what
have
decision?
paths to this, yeah.
Well, you might refine something as simple as accessory. Well, it's an accessory structure versus.
New structure,
Like dwelling structure.
Yeah.
or addition of X number of square
Yeah.
feet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Rich, did this come up in the discussions, this detail or this nuance, this distinction?
So at the council level, the question was raised about the burden of costs.
Yeah.
Or the process, even in such. It's gonna be additional work for borough staff, because it's gotta be reviewed.
Yeah.
It's gotta be implemented, it's gotta be inspected, it's gotta be, you have to ensure compliance and everything else. The challenge though is, even the stuff that comes before this board. Most of the applications we get are minor site plans, minor subdivisions. There's no requirements for stormwater. And I don't wanna say we struggle with that every time, but we're constantly like trying to encourage the applicant, like. The most recent one we had was like, they're like, well, we'll do a rain garden, and that's what they show, and it's taking like half the roof of the back of the existing building, and. That's a benefit, that's an improvement. And that's because, especially in our business district. Most of what's out there is impervious.
so how much of an issue is
89%.
Yeah,
stormwater management in town, forgetting
how much is what?
like Colonial Court, and flood like crazy, Smith Street, like, is the reality, or, Buena Vista that has a super high water table, or, but like, how much of an issue do you guys have or see? If people aren't right, there's limits in impervious coverage, so in theory, you have quite a bit of grass. Most of the soil in Fairhaven is super high quality.
Mhm.
So it percolates very well. So how much of an issue is it really? Like, I guess
Most of the issues come up during construction, it's the perception of
Sure,
my neighbor's building this. And I'm afraid my basement's gonna flood, or I'm afraid my backyard's gonna flood, or I'm afraid the water's gonna run off into. And it's. We walk them through the process, whoever's calling, we try to explain to them, it's not final graded. There's no established lawn, it's not landscaped. It's a construction site, so it looks a bit intimidating. For that neighbor when they live next to something for 8 to 12 months. And dealing with all the other, you know, the deliveries and the trucks and all the other.
Stressful environment.
It's the inconveniences,
Yeah.
so a lot of it ends up going towards the stormwater question, well. What's gonna happen, where they're putting in that swimming pool and they're raising up the grade, well, you have to, because, you know, you can't have the water run into the pool. Even though they might only be bringing it up this much, when it's 10 feet off your property, the person next to them is saying, wait a minute.
it's gonna pitch towards me.
This looks like it's gonna really pitch towards me, but when that drop of rain falls from the sky and it's gonna get soaked up in
It's gonna
the.
get soaked up 10 feet before it makes the
Right.
water along. Right.
So those are the types of things that we deal with.
But you feel as an engineer, and you know this certainly better than any of us, that the. As it, like, just the concept of.
I
having
get
to
to,
do
when
it
I
with
came
minor-
here 18 years ago, there was no process for new construction, there was no
Yeah.
process for these types of projects. So what I had implemented was a certificate of occupancy process, and that triggers a review of what, obviously at the zoning, but then at the back end. Prior to CO, we go out and do a full walkthrough of every, you know, of the property. We'll call out and say, listen, that downspout can't be going this way, this needs to be rerouted, or. The grading along the side yard, I had one the other day, this is not sufficient. And the builder met with me and. He said, all right, what if I do it this way? And I had him pull up all the sod and reshape it and.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a couple hours worth of work for them. to
Right,
do.
but if you're building, you can get that right from the beginning if you know what you're doing, but like my question is, the impervious. Restrictions are there to make sure that there's enough pervious ground so that you can recharge, so that you can absorb the water, so why on a minor
I think the challenge we're having
development
too
is
is
it
the
needed? That's my question.
rainfall events we're having are
Yeah,
more
I figured.
frequent.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, they're
Yeah.
more intense.
Yep.
And they're quick.
Mhm.
And you get this flash
shot.
rain
Yeah,
event.
so floods.
Yeah, flash flood,
it-
yeah.
And then,
so floods.
you know,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, we were out, you know, in knee-high water cleaning off storm drains.
Yeah.
Everything was just
Yeah.
underwater.
Yeah.
Because we got so
Especially
much
having-
rain in such a quick amount of time. So. The other thing too is we feel and we know that DEP is going in this direction.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've adopted the major development, they're making all the towns comply with the new rules and regs. And we felt as a borough, and with the amount of construction that's ongoing, every street you turn down, there's a dumpster. The permits are coming in all day, every day, there's no shortage of, you know, construction going on. Well, maybe we need to strike a balance to see what we can do to manage stormwater. Or at least, I hate to use this term, but push the burden back on them to manage the stormwater. Because that's really what we're looking to do, and when I go out and if I go out and meet with somebody right now. Maybe they are, maybe they're not causing an issue with the neighbor, I tell them, listen. You have to figure out a way to manage your stormwater. And that could be through creative ways of putting a pop-up drain towards the center of your lawn and letting that water perk out. Rather than have a downspout pointed onto your driveway that is pitched towards your neighbor. It's those little tweaks and balances that we try to figure out.
Yeah.
The 400 square feet we thought was a good. Resting spot because 250, I think, is too strict.
Mhm.
I mean, 400. That's where, at that point in time, if someone's adding 400 square feet to their driveway, that's a pretty considerable, that's like 40 by 10. You know,
Yeah,
could be doubling the size of their driveway. And to answer your question, we talked about this at the council level.
But I mean, when you guys, when it was being formed, like, so people closest to it, was this.
We talked about process, we talked about the cost and the burden. But we tried to, we felt confident in such a way that what we're looking for is like low impact type. You know,
Yeah.
BMPs,
So the solution.
not the $10,000.
But like you're saying, if a guy wants to add 10 feet to his driveway, make his driveway low water so his kids can get out of the driveway. They have to have a site plan for that? There's a problem, my hang up is, like, it's okay, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Catch the water, let's do something about the water, 400 square feet. But let's do one of these things you say up here without all the other
But you
nonsense.
jump through hoops to get there.
That's,
So you-
It's the
400.
Yeah.
And when you do in a house or whatever else, fine, do all that stuff.
Right,
The guy's gonna add 10 feet to his driveway, he's gonna have to do all that and soil borings and all that.
Yeah, it's this, the solution is what's
Fine.
low cost, that's
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
rain garden, swale, whatever.
Yeah,
But-
go in back,
is
easy
there
to
an
process.
easy way to
first.
get there?
Right.
Is there a way that we could get there quicker than having to go through the whole
The
process?
challenge, and I've said this too, is there's no one size fits all.
But,
Yeah.
but is
Every
that a?
project's different. And the zones are different. We've got a lot of different zones. You know, from R5 to R40. In the R5 zones, 50-foot lots, if you're doubling the size of your driveway. Chances are you may be creating an adverse or something with the neighboring property. So that's the challenge too, but we get it, and we did talk about all this, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're, in plain English, it's, you know, somebody builds a shed with a little patio, we want them doing soil boring.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
That's the part.
I agree on your R5 or whatever, and it's a bigger driveway, small lot or whatever, but still, address the water concern like you're talking about with all these solutions. I just don't know if you need to get plans and soil borings for it. It sounds a little extreme.
It seems very.
Is there a way to do, but I guess the challenge is you need to quantify how much water you need to displace and move? Or is it sufficient from the council and town standpoint to say, we know we're adding X amount of square footage, let's just do a 10 by 10 rain garden or whatever, like, can you, I don't know. Like you said, right, if you're doing new construction, you're doing all those things.
So
You
fine,
need a
whatever,
survey,
yes.
you need the plot plan, you need the borings, you need the things, so.
That's all.
Can we
You know.
live in a world where it can be a one-off scenario? Are we, is it manageable
be
for us to do that?
Modified, otherwise no one will do it.
Well, what about the
Right.
ratio of lot size to square footage, right? So,
400 is a one size fit all number, but R5 versus R40 mean
It's
two very different things.
Yeah.
right, so then if you're looking at percentage of overall lot size, then it becomes a different conversation and
Right.
sort of trigger.
If you're adding
Yeah,
a
well,
percentage
yeah.
of
Yeah.
impervious, additional.
So let me rephrase my question to you, so in the original intent. When you guys were putting this together, was this kind of stuff percolating to the top? And you couldn't come up with a good solution to solve all of the constraints? Or did it not come up basically, you know?
It came up, it was discussed. The 400 square foot number rather than a percentage is. It's easy to determine if you and your family wanna do an addition. Instead of trying to figure out percentages. Because people struggle with that. We see it even at the board level. They're confused on what the lot coverage is and the building coverage and all that. Like I use the example of a phone call to Borough Hall. I'm looking to build a 10 by 10 mudroom. You're good. You don't need anything. But if you said, oh, well, we're putting in a 40 by 10, family room off the back with a front porch or with a back porch and a patio. Yeah, we're gonna wanna see something.
Even the mudroom, you get into the discussion of. Can you stairs into it? Are you, how far above the existing grade are you going to end up? But
My reaction is 400 seems appropriate, it's been well thought out. It's not a perfect solution, but I can't think of one that's better. Right, all the other alternatives have more problems, hard to calculate, et cetera. So 400 seems fine, I'm with you guys on the soil boring for something small.
Right,
I guess,
I think 4 inches fine too.
just to talk about the other side. Is the calculation difficult for the construction office to do for for smaller, for R5 versus R40? I mean,
Is that a formula?
it doesn't, I actually don't think it would be that hard to calculate, but it's not the homeowner's responsibility. It's, I think it probably
Because
has.
the construction maintenance and everything else, we have all that. right?
Yeah.
Tax records.
Yeah, and if somebody is proposing the mudroom, then.
Used to.
Here's the answer.
But your process,
Yeah, they give me
your
the-
process is a little bit different.
No, you have to do an as-built, you have to measure everything on your property. So it's that compared to your lot area there,
Who does? The homeowner or the applicant or
The
the
applicant.
town?
the applicant, the applicant.
So my perspective is driven by a zoning board, and it's very confusing for applicants and.
Yeah.
It's definitely easier to say, I won't do that like that.
Yeah, it has to do that.
It's being pushed back on the applicant and it's, and the person who's trying to do these things, which is just.
Well, the rules.
And-
The infringement is on the applicant.
Right, and we have offices that are dedicated to it. I just-
Well, there's those guys with board response, you know, you have to use the
I have
plans
twice the name of the purpose service.
But the one thing you have to
It's up one
remember,
conversation at a time. Yes.
No, I'm saying the process is different than, you don't. Maybe, you don't have a department that can do everything all at once, what you're usually doing is. Give me your current survey. Give me your accurate development on that site. And then from there, just about everybody can go and then make your calculation, if you've got a. A 50 by 100 lot and you've got X amount of impervious surface from the house, X amount of impervious surface from the pool, X amount of impervious surface from the shed. You're pretty sure as to what your impervious coverage is, what your building coverage is, without the planning department going out and taking those measurements and doing a survey. We all rely upon, I think all the boards rely upon, the accuracy and the certifications of those surveys. But I don't know if that's the issue that you're getting to, but that will give you what your building coverage is and your impervious coverage is. Where people get a little confused is, okay, it's not a building, but it still qualifies for impervious coverage. It's not a this, but it still qualifies for, and that's in your initial section. I think this goes past that to now when you get so much of a disturbance where you didn't need relief before, you're going to need relief. I'm hearing two things. It's gonna increase the cost. And in certain projects, you really shouldn't have to go through all of those hoops to get there.
Yes.
So if it's, and maybe that's something where you can refine it with, again, using existing tools. I'm not asking, we'll make this a design variance. Normally I would have to do this, but you can be eligible to get a design variance if it is, maybe we go back to percentages. Maybe something like that you could do, but again, the applicant's gonna have to be able to establish that. And then you don't have to wait to drive by. If this is what you're doing, if it's an accessory structure, if it is not, as you said before, it's not walls up, it's not vertical. If it's the pool, if it's the patio, and you do those things, it seems to me, if you're putting a patio, doing soil borings seems a bit much. My observation.
Okay, and like we're saying, like between clarification and division, I mean, it could be like, hey, anything up to 399, you don't have to worry about this at all, throw this thing in the garbage. 400 and above, you have to address your water issue. But you don't have to do plans, and anything 1,000 or above, because it's a giant addition or a new house or new construction, you have to do plans. That's all I'm gonna call it, that's all I'm saying. I'm okay with capturing the water and doing whatever you're supposed to do.
Well, this is additional paragraph. The planning board struggled with.
Well, I also think that
Yeah,
it's gonna be heard more in zoning than it'll be heard in planning, so I kind of. Concept of workshopping this with the land use committee is appealing in my mind, because I think that like the people that are gonna deal with these residential applications should have their voice in this as well, so.
Oh, without. Agreed.
Rich, what's your reaction to staggered 399, 400 to 800 tiering it? What's your gut reaction?
Based on zone? Or based on,
Sure. Either way.
so. We've discussed a lot of this and we tried to think about a sliding scale with the percentages. The challenge is you've got multiple zones, all the zones at different percentage. Maximums for both impervious. Whether it's lot coverage, building coverage, et cetera.
Which, by the way, brings you to another point where like, there's a difference if you're adding 400 feet. And that takes you to your max pervious versus if you have 1,500 feet that you can add and you're adding 400, so you still have, 1,100 available,
Play with.
right? So like, it gets very.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like,
complicated.
I know this in zoning recently, the governing body has had decades of opportunity to change the zoning code that we currently have, and they have not changed it, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so if it is a schedule that needs to be put into place based on square footage or based on percentages, I see the logic in that, but it's not for us to decide here, I think it's for the governing body to continue to talk through, and if, you can't really say it's burdensome to have all these different zones, because that's the government chooses us, chooses the two, so.
Doug, do you have what you need to?
I've, cleared it up. No, I mean, really, no, I think we had a cost issue, we had a type of construction issue that's gonna trigger additional planning. Otherwise, you would never have done, again, cost issue. I think I don't think I heard anybody on the board say, no, we have to address. Water, stormwater runoff, and if the DEP regulations are really geared toward large development, then we're back to where when you first came, the borough and said, we didn't address it at all. And we clearly see it being addressed in individual applications and zoning board adjustment, each and every application. And it would be better if people knew what those standards were and came in with a plan or a request for a waiver or a request for a variance or a request for those things early on. The difficulty, and I've said this before, you don't really want to have lots of people come before boards.
Right.
The whole idea is to cut us out of the process because
Great waivers.
not having to do that, to be able to come into the planning department and say, here's my survey, here's my impervious, here's my pervious, here's what I wanna build. Please give me my permit.
We seem like
And
we're
be,
heading
and be able to say, yep, you're good.
So Rich, despite the fact that we sort of drilled in on these couple of things, this is progress.
Yeah.
So part of it too, and off of what you just said, if an applicant came before the planning or zoning board. You can add a condition that you need to give us stormwater management.
Yeah.
Administratively, we have no mechanism for that.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's happened for the last, how many years?
Yeah, nobody does it.
We've encouraged applicants to give us something. Or we know the areas in town or the properties that need something. Have we been challenged? Yes, absolutely. I've had people call and say,
And failure.
I'm not required to do it.
Hurts you in your shower.
and I'm like, okay, well, you know. That's true, but just give us something, and then honestly, most people, they
Yeah.
wanna do
Neighbor.
something, they wanna manage it.
If you explain the value to it, it's like, you're not gonna have something, it's not just, you're not gonna have to have something that's now. Even if it's your own creation, you're not gonna have to have that problem.
The other
You don't-
piece of this too, we talked a little bit about the process is. We're trying to take the burden off the zoning officer and put it back more on the engineering department. And separate the two, so people can go see the zoning officer. Seek their approvals from zoning. And concurrently work through. And you mentioned the other regulations, street opening permits, tree removal permits. Dumpster permits, I mean, the list goes on, where if we could pull that out of. Even historic preservation, all these other different layers, outside agency approvals. Right now, that's all layered in the zoning. Permit, where this can all come off and now is going on the engineering review application. And it allows us to track it better, monitor it. And at the end of the day, and Nick Perchinsky always said this is. We're a clearinghouse. We need to ensure compliance, just like you guys do as board members. You're trying to ensure compliance. And that's what we wanna do. We wanna ensure compliance. We wanna be able to check the box that. Is a sound development and you're doing something and. The other thing too, and we did talk about it at the council level, this is the first draft. And if we introduce it and we've got some hiccups, we can go back and amend. And do I anticipate this? Yes, but at least we've got something where. These projects are coming in right now and. We don't have anything, and a lot of it's happening at the board level. Especially the zoning board where.
Yeah.
They're doing these projects and.
I can't remember an application that came before the zoning board in recent vintage. Where we're at the topic of how does your site drain
Mhm.
and how much more, impervious surface you're putting, have you thought about a dry well? And most of the folks are, because they're there for some other reason, saying, yeah, sure. In those instances, I've got the machinery there,
100%.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Yep.
As opposed to now creating a class where they would never be coming before a board. And now for something like what I would consider an accessory structure, non-habitable dwelling. You're gonna create.
Yeah.
A whole nother layer of bureaucracy, which I don't think is the intent.
Right.
But if you do have the standard, you can have a check off, you're not gonna need.
The question is, how do you do it without all the red tape to get there, but still have it codified, so there's a mechanism that adds zoning.
We're not gonna perfect that ordinance tonight.
Yes, but
But
that's what it needs to
Yeah,
be,
that's
like,
our-
everyone's saying, these are good things to do to deal with water, just. Maybe not this burdensome in this instance, it's okay, right, so. That's.
All right, do you think we have what we need here? Do we need a motion for this, or is it something that,
the motion is framed as follows. Doug, please. Put together a writing that reflects the thoughts of the board to share with mayor and council concerning the ordinance. I don't think I heard anybody say, our core responsibility is this at odds with the development regulations for the master plan? I think everybody agrees that this is consistent with the development regulations and master plan. Now it's a matter of, here's additional concerns
There's a
if you're
comment.
going forward on these that don't really affect our ultimate mission of, yes, it's consistent with master plan development regulations. Here are some of the discussion points that the board raised.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Here's what happened, that it does not
well, do we need a motion for that, or is
make
it?
that motion.
You should remember that.
So moved.
Second, I got it.
Yeah, good.
You're all looking at me. Sheila's the one that's gotta put this in the minutes.
No, something is, she is.
Some shit.
A lot of bouncing around. Okay, Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Newell.
Yes.
Mr. Paolo.
Yes,
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Antonin.
Yes.
And Mr. Chris.
Yes.
from a timing standpoint, right, do you from the council, do you need Doug's feedback? And-
Oh, they're gonna move it on the 24th, so I can get something out, before the end of this week.
So we get our packets on Thursday.
We have a meeting.
I'll have it out tomorrow.
All right, back to the agenda,
Well, I'm looking for his direction then.
driving the bus. Go back to new business, there is none on the agenda. I did want to ask, are there any applications coming for December?
There may be, there's gonna be a technical design review committee meeting for the Tableau Pronto application this Thursday. Once that happens, I guess Rich will let me know if it's scheduled.
Okay, good. We do have one line item here in old business, continuation of the master plan reexamination discussion. I have not seen much or heard much on the master plan since the last meeting.
The last meeting, I think Fred said he was sending that survey draft to the business administrator to get feedback, but I haven't heard anything. From either of them, but
The last thing we talked about too is potentially for each of the committees, once they were approved, having a meeting between now and the end of the year.
Yeah.
My concern there is obviously it's almost over a year, so.
Were the committees approved?
Yeah, good.
I said, I don't know, did
I
we
don't
send
know.
out any info to?
We weren't looking for approval from your councils, wherever that's the last time, we should notification, my understanding. If you got your members to them, you've given them notification.
Right.
That's my
I
understanding.
gave them to,
Right.
I gave it to Fred.
And I was copied on something that went to, I believe, Mayor on.
Great.
Notification, so I do believe we're formed from a committee standpoint.
So should we have to meet with our?
So we can meet with our,
Yeah, well, right.
I want to meet with the,
planner.
I think it's the
Yeah.
planner that would be reaching out to meet with the subcommittees. Is that
Yeah, was it, I thought.
right?
it
That was my
Right, he's fine.
understanding,
Yeah.
that once
take
they,
it off.
once
Good
those
understanding.
subcommittees were
Oh,
in place, then the planner would be engaging with them to have meetings kind of
Yeah.
offline, not this setting.
You got you.
Well, don't be sure.
I mean, that would be great. I thought we were just starting that meeting and then.
I think there've been more people, I think there have been more people, suggested than there are spots. So I think the mayor has to go through all of them and get that finalized.
Can we ask the mayor
Actually,
to
the mayor
finalize?
or the chair possibly, we figured, there was some discussion about that, if Fred does it or if the mayor does it. Because we're separate, it's a little bit different animal than like the environmental commission. is.
I thought that he was just over,
We were
he's
just,
not approving
no, we were submitting as courtesy.
courtesy yet, there's no.
We get to decide who's
And I
on the
think Fred
committee.
has to. approve.
Yeah,
I think Fred,
Right.
yeah.
The planning board decides who's on the committees, we were just passing them through to mayor and council as a courtesy.
yeah,
But
So I guess if they hated somebody and came back to us, we could say, okay, fine.
but even.
We could say, we could say, no, we're still keeping them,
Yeah,
we're still keeping them.
So the last I saw, I think some of the committees, subcommittees were formed and weren't oversubscribed. Maybe there are some that aren't. So in the case that we have a formed subcommittee, can we have the planner reach out for those?
Or get that information to the planner, we're ready to work with you.
yeah, if our committees are ready to go, let's have that conversation and get going.
Yeah.
If not, then individual committees can have the conversation with Fred or whoever.
This conflicts with the conversation I had with Fred, I would just hold up.
Okay.
a bit. System.
All right, table that, yeah.
He's not like out of town, is he, you know?
I think I had a work obligation tonight. Anything else anybody wants to contribute for the master plan? All right, I want to open it up to the public. We'll go right.
I do have a question. Because I perked up when I heard about this, 400 square feet thing that's gonna trigger a mess for everybody. How do you get a waiver?
It's at the discretion of, there's no waiver, there's no variance required, it's. If you can't, for whatever reason, do any of those types of BMPs. Like you say, I just can't build we can't get a rain garden to work, or we can't get this to work. Then it's at the discretion administratively for us to take a look at it.
All right, well, let me just explain my situation. I had always wanted to put a standalone garage in and with a pool. So I kind of perked up when I heard this discussion at the council meeting. And both Rich and Brian have been through my backyard. All the water runs to my backyard. All of it. There's nothing that goes anyplace other than my backyard. So therefore, why would I have to do something like that in order to fulfill this requirement? Because I don't have water running off my property. I'm actually getting probably some of my neighbors.
Right, so your question is not how do you get a waiver from needing to do those if you're triggered? How do you specifically, like, could Rich come to your property and say, you can have a waiver from it altogether because I see how it's running.
Yeah, I don't wanna go through
Right.
samples and all that kind of
Right,
stuff,
so is there
when I'm not,
anything to waive that if you're doing it?
Well, it depends on the
You're gonna
situation.
still have to go through the permit.
Yeah.
You would go through a permitting process,
Right.
and from that,
Well,
they will advise you.
trust me, I'll go through a big process with the state of New Jersey. Because I have to go through NJDEP first,
Because of the location of your property,
yeah,
and you're
And that one. is
most
not
likely
fun.
in a floodplain
yeah.
in the back.
Oh, yeah,
So there, it's a different process.
and their new regs, if they have the real rules, are bananas,
Mhm.
banana.
Point taken, thank you. We don't have an answer. I think it's just.
But I may not be the only unique situation like that.
Yeah, no, anybody that's or in the water, the.
Well, I mean, it actually sounds like you have wetlands. I mean, that's what you're talking.
It's a floodplain, definitely.
Floodplain.
Those are, as Mr. Anderson alluded to, those are people with stronger regulations than we have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't-
But I mean, I'm gonna have to do it
So
like
we don't have the ability to tell you.
And I don't wanna do any core samples or anything like that. Cause I'm probably gonna have to put it in an above ground pool.
Ooh,
Okay, that's my, oh, and also, when people cut down trees, it releases a lot of water. And that's not taken into consideration in either the tree ordinance or in this plan.
That's a shame. I think that, you know, the example of like the pool put in the back corner of the yard. I mean, when you cut root structures, not only does it damage it impacts the water absorption, but it also could force a tree to fall away from the pool that you just put in onto your neighbor's yard or house. So that should be in the tree ordinance somewhere, but
The tree ordinance does try to replace a tree that's been taken down with new trees, so it's a.
However, they never replaced with the size tree that was removed.
Right, other root structure.
And there is going to be more water on a property when a
Yes,
large tree is removed.
yeah,
So that's not taken into consideration in this 400-foot thing.
should we have one?
The best one that exists.
natural.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Any other than- oh,
No, I'll probably say this at the council meeting again, so.
Anyone online with a hand up? Anyone out there behind the column that I can't see?
Stop stalling, Dave.
Yes, that was all.
A lot of water.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from the planning board? Can I get a motion to adjourn motion? There we go. All approved, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?